And Kristi Noem, a governor in the party of Ronald Reagan, Peggy Noonan, and Charles Krauthammer kept saying Kamala sucks. Kamala sucks. I mean, it was just, again, it is so incredible. These people who claim the mantle of Ronald Reagan or claim the mantle of, Lincoln or Ike or anybody, they've just debased the party so much in so many ways. You saw Glenn Youngkin yesterday, right?
Yeah.
Glenn Youngkin being interviewed by Jake, and it was like you were watching clips of East Germany, 1986. Oh no, we're free. The Soviet Union doesn't. And he just kept going back, and he was lying. The interviewer knew he was lying. The audience knew he was lying. But it didn't matter. It was only great leader that he was focused on. I have to lie. I have to shame all of my former business partners. I have to shame everybody that has worked on my campaigns. I have to shame myself and just lie, a bold-faced lie about the guy I'm supporting saying he's going to get armed troops to go after his political opponents on Election Day, or else Donald Trump may get mad. That's where the Republican Party's been, unfortunately, for 9 years, and that's why they keep losing.
Yeah, the cultish behavior of this Republican Party was on full display yesterday from that strange rally in Pennsylvania that Donald Trump held, where the sitting governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, who, remember, took herself off the short list to be vice president after talking again and again about shooting her dog, kept calling him sir, sir, in this weird way and echoing whatever he said. It was just a bizarre dynamic. And then you have Glenn Youngkin, who was supposed to be just this pro-business Mitt Romney, old-school Republican, doing the same thing. Jake Tapper reading direct quotes to Governor Youngkin and say, that's not what he said. And Jake said, no, hold on. I'm literally reading his words. What is your response to those words? We'll play that in just a few minutes. So it was, again, this is where the party is now, with 3 weeks to go until Election Day. And a lot of this is stylistic, but we'll also dig into some of the substance again of what Donald Trump is saying about tariffs, what he's saying about immigration, the lies he is telling to his supporters.
I love what you tweeted, which is the process a Trump supporter or
Trump apologist right,
goes through when you try to actually present them with the facts. It's a process, and you actually never get anywhere with them.
It always is, and Jake's interview with Glenn Youngkin yesterday really kind of showed it, where, and I hear this actually I heard it yesterday in my everyday life, where, you go in and say, well, my gosh, did you hear what he said about arresting all of his opponents and shutting down CBS and using the National Guard and military to go against his political opponents on Election Day? And the first thing they say, this happened to me yesterday, I didn't hear that. Mm-hmm. And then you go, well, he said it.
Here it is.
Here's the quote.
Let's play it for you.
And he said,
we'll read it for you.
Yeah, he didn't say. I mean, he didn't say. And you go, here's the quote. That's exactly what he said. And then if you finally get them to admit what everybody knows the truth, Willie, they'll then go, well, he doesn't mean it.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
He says he's going to arrest all of his opponents. He says he's going to shut down networks he doesn't like.
Use the military.
Says he's going to use the military to attack, but he doesn't mean it. He's just joking. Not much of a joke, but speaking of a joke, let's go ahead really quickly before we get into the show and be entertained by Glenn Youngkin and Jake Tapper.
You heard some of the language that Mr. Trump used over the weekend. What do you think of this idea of, quote, we have some sick people, radical left lunatics, and I think it should be very easily handled by, if necessary, the National Guard, or if really necessary, by the military? Is that something that you support?
Jake, first of all, thank you for having me. And I guess what I want to just make very clear is that it's my belief that what former President Trump is talking about are the people that are coming over the border, that in fact are committing crimes, that are bringing drugs, that are trafficking humans. and that are turning every state into a border state. And I'm a governor of a state that is not near the southern border, and yet I see the impacts of 10 million people illegally coming across the border every single day.
But that's not what I'm talking about, because he was talking about sick people, radical left lunatics who should be handled by the National Guard or the military. And then later on in that same speech, he said that one of the lunatics he addressed was Congressman Adam Schiff. That's who he was talking about using the National Guard and military against, radical left lunatics, enemy from within, people like Adam Schiff.
Again, Jake, I don't think that and again, I can't.
I'm just reading you his
speak
quotes.
For him, but I do think that you are misinterpreting and misrepresenting his thoughts. I do believe, again, it's all around the fact that we have had an unprecedented number of illegal immigrants come over the border in an unconstrained, unrestrained fashion. The Biden-Harris administration has allowed it to happen. Just 2 weeks ago, we, in fact, had senior people from our national security apparatus say that there's 15,000 violent felons in the United States. They have no idea where they are. That is what I believe the president is referring to. I don't think that he's referring to elected people in America. But
I'm literally reading his quotes. I'm literally reading his quotes to you, and I played them earlier so you could hear that they were not made up by me. He's literally talking about, quote, radical left lunatics. And then one of those lunatics he addressed, he mentioned, was Congressman Adam Schiff. But I'm talking about Donald Trump saying that he wants to use the National Guard and the military to go after the left. That's what he's saying.
I don't believe that's what he's saying. But listen, you and I are going to argue about that. But I would suggest if you would also.
I played the quote and I read it to you.
If you would also balance
you can wish that he weren't saying that, but that's what he's saying.
Again, Joe, that is Glenn Youngkin, conventional Mitt Romney, pro-business Republican, just twisting himself in knots to defend Donald Trump. And again, they're lying about the numbers. I know he misspoke, but they're not even close when he said 10 million illegal immigrants are crossing the border every week. The number in September, according to the Border Patrol, was 54,000, which represented a low going back more than 4 years.
Yeah, and it is. What's so fascinating is I'd say normally it's not really what Donald Trump said, except for the fact that what he's talking about is a fascist, right out of fascist playbook where you use the military to go after your political opponents. I will say he did try to pressure the Attorney General. For everybody, all these Trump apologists right now are people who are ashamed to vote for Donald Trump but are lying about Donald Trump and saying, oh, we got through 4 years without him doing anything. Yeah, we didn't, actually. And we didn't get through January 6th. And also, again, for those that call themselves proud Reagan supporters or 41 supporters or whoever you've supported in the past, this is a guy that pressured his attorney general publicly and privately to arrest Hillary Clinton. This is a guy that publicly and privately pressured his attorney general to arrest Joe Biden 2 weeks before the 2020 election. So we've been here before, and Republicans know it, and they keep lying for him. And again, I'm sorry, what's in it for Glenn Youngkin? I've never understood what was in it for him and what was in it for other people.
These things don't end well for everybody.
So why would he do that? Why have Republicans been doing this for 9 years? Especially
it's inexplicable to
when
me.
you get to the point where you're defending somebody. Glenn Youngkin is defending the use of the Army and the National Guard against Democrats, against Donald Trump's political opponents. That's where we are. That's where America is. That's where the Republican Party is 3 weeks from, can I say it now? The election of our lifetime?
Yes.
The most important election of our lifetime. If you have a Republican Party going along with all of the things they've been going along with, and they can't even say it's about policy because, you know, the Wall Street Journal yesterday, the Wall Street Journal, not like The Nation, the Wall Street Journal, the business journal for Wall Street in America. It interviewed economists, and almost unanimously they said Donald Trump's policies would lead to higher inflation and a bigger deficit than Kamala Harris's policies. And the tariffs, they keep getting crazier and crazier. 5%, 10%, 20%. I mean, there is nothing about his policies that are good for anybody except like billionaires in Silicon Valley.
Republicans are so specific about things Kamala Harris has said 5, 10, 15 years ago. They remember it crystal clear. And yet you present him with something Donald Trump said to them
yesterday
at a rally or said in an interview that they clearly saw. And they cannot admit it happened because it's usually something that is so against the norms or against what our Constitution stands for or unlawful. And just, again, the hypocrisy is incredible. It's also frightening, the things that Donald Trump is saying. Also, they say she doesn't do interviews, she doesn't do this, she's not smart, she's not this, she's stupid. Kristi Noem, are you in 8th grade? What grade are you in? Literally, acting like a child. A child that would be put to the side and said, you're going to take a time out. But here's the deal. Like, Kamala Harris is now doing an interview on Fox News. What are you running out of things to criticize?
Well,
you have to make up stuff.
They're making it up because you take that. Wait, who's stupid? Who was beaten so badly in the debate that he refused to do a second debate with Kamala Harris on Fox News? Who is now? I mean, he thinks the election's on January the 5th. He gets confused about World War II. He thinks Barack Obama is president of the United States. You can go on and on about all the things that he said. And swaying to music for God knows how long last night, he refuses to do a 60 Minutes interview. Okay, well, we know why. He refuses to release his medical records. And while we're talking about just the latest outrage that he said on Sunday, I say outrage, I don't know if it's catastrophizing if somebody just out and out says we should be like fascists. We should use the military against our political opponents. That's what he said, Glenn Youngkin, and you know it. So no need to lie anymore. Everybody knows you're lying. Stop humiliating yourself.
Why?
But, even over the past week or two, they've lied about Springfield. They've lied about, again, still lying about the 2020 election, continuing to lie over and over again. So it's a pretty clear-cut decision if you're a Republican, if you're a conservative, if you're an American. And yet the polls say it's pretty close.